ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवम्। Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So let me share my screen. So close. So previously in the Brahma Samhita, we started with Brahmaji's prayer. So when Brahmaji was initiated by Gayatri, and then he was given knowledge after his performance of tafa, he offered prayers with the hymns that we started last time. And the very first verse in his prayer, how he is meditating on Krishna, and his abode was Chintamani Prakarasudmasa Kalpavruksha Lakshavrutesh Sarabhira Vipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambrahma Sedyamanam Govindam ādi-puruṣaṁ tamaham bhajāmi. So he describes the abode of Krishna, Goloka Vrindavan at Chintamani. It is made up of the spiritual gems. And it is surrounded by kalpa vruksha trees, the desire trees, and also there are thousands and millions of surabhi cow there, the desire fulfilling cows there, and Krishna is abhipalayantam, he's protecting them, he's tending them. And there are hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or gopis who are with love and devotion continuously serving him. Now, the further in verse what we will read today, he describes the form of Krishna, what he is meditating on, the form of Krishna, or the details about the forms which he is seeing in his on whose he is praying, and which goes like this. वेणुं क्वनन्तमरविन्ददलायताक्षम् barhāvataṁsam ambuda-sundarāṅgam kandarpa-koṭi-kamanīya-viśeṣa-śobhaṁ govindam ādi-puruṣaṁ tamaham bhajāmi. So he's describing Krishna, who is veṇuṁ kvaṇantam, who is playing his flute very beautifully and attracting everybody through the sounds of Venu. And there are so many beautiful verses in only in Bhagavatam where this pastimes when Krishna is playing on his flute and different pastimes, or how he is described by different devotees or gopis, or even in the Mathura when he goes to kill Kamsa on his invitation, how the ladies in Mathura, when they see him, they are describing how Krishna is playing his flute, and how all the gopis are always waiting for him when he and they relish his form or his beauty uh, when he comes back after tending his cows, or when he's leaving. They are always ready for that. So veṇuṁ kvaṇantam. And I was actually looking at a couple of verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. This one is from the 44th chapter, where, as I mentioned, Krishna, when he goes to Mathura, And when he enters the Mathura, and then all the ladies who stand on the balcony and everywhere, they are watching him and they are describing what his pastimes are, or how the gopis in Vrindavan, how they are so fortunate to get association, personal association of Krishna, and where they describe Krishna as when the gopis hear Krishna playing his flute as he leaves Vraja in the morning with the cows or return with them at sunset. So whenever Krishna is leaving in the morning to the forest for tending cows, or when he returns, the gopis were always eager to see him, always very, very eager to see his beauty. And how they will know when he was playing flute? Always he was playing flute, and that's how they were attracted. The young girls quickly came out of their houses to see him. And this is the women in Mathura that is describing about the gopis and how they were very eager to see Krishna. They must have performed many pious activities to be able to see him as he walks on the road, his smiling face mercifully glancing upon them. And there are so many other different pastimes that in the Bhagavatam mention about when he's playing a flute, and how all the gopis are eager to see him and hear about his flute. And then he is described as aravinda-dalāyatākṣam. So his eyes are beautiful, like aravinda-dala. So the lotus petals of aravinda-dalayata, and they are very beautiful, blooming the lotus petals. His Krishna's eyes, Brahmaji is describing as his eyes are as like beautiful, like those lotus petals, which are very blooming. And then barhāvataṁsam, and he has a peacock feather. His head is decorated with peacock feather, and this also peacock feather Brahmaji also not Brahmaji, but after Brahmaji's prayers he offers to Krishna. Then when he's returning to Vrindavan, all these after the Brahma Vimohan Leela, when the description that is given when Krishna is returning again back to uh, uh, home from after tending the cows, after killing Aghasura, then his description is very beautiful given here, that Lord Krishna's transcendental body was decorated with peacock feather. And that is one of the very beautiful ornaments he is always wearing on his head, the peacock feathers. And the flowers and painted with forest minerals, and his bamboo flute loudly as festively resounded. Again, the flute is also mentioned here. So this description, when beauty of Krishna is described, comes again and again in Srimad Bhagavatam, and also even in Brahma Samhita, when Brahmaji is describing, there are some repetitions about describing this beauty of Krishna. And he also called out his cows by names, and his cowherd boyfriends purified the whole world by chanting his glories. Thus Krishna entered the cow pasture of his father, Nanda Maharaj, and the sight of his beauty once produced a great festival for the eyes of all the cowherd women. This is the elderly ladies, including Yashoda. So their eyes, it was always festival for them to see Krishna for their eyes. So barhāvataṁsam, and then his beauty is described as asitāmbuda-sundarāṅgam. So just like a cloud filled with water, full of water, is dark bluish cloud, gives us pleasure after sun. So after heat, in the same manner, Krishna's beauty is pacifying. So asitāmbuda, his color is like that of a dark blue or darkish blue cloud, and his sundarāṅgam, that is his beautiful form. His complexion is given here as that of a dark blue cloud. And then his beauty is compared here, kandarpa-koṭi-kamanīya-viśeṣa-śobhaṁ, that his form is so beautiful that it can be compared with Kandarpa. Kandarpa is considered as one of the most beautiful persons in this material world, and he is always engaged in when somebody, or Cupid, when somebody is attacked by Cupid, that means he is always attracted by the opposite sex. And then, so that Kandarpa is the most beautiful person in this material world, but his beauty is compared with Kandarpa-koṭi. Koṭi means millions of Kandarpa. If their beauty is put together, then we can probably compare that beauty of Krishna with that. So kandarpa-koṭi-kamanīya, and his charming, loving, beautiful form is very unique or very specific, Viśeṣa. So now the word Viśeṣa is used here for a specific beauty of Krishna describing here. But Prabhupada many times use this word as Viśeṣa also is one which has variety. So Prabhupada many times described that spiritual world, the spiritual realm where Krishna resides eternally, is made up of spiritual variety. It is not like giving up variety, or it is not like just light or something that when the Brahman realize souls, they seek for liberation because they are fed up with the material variety here, or the material pains and suffering here, and because they want to merge into Brahman. So for them, Prabhupada as Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, he calls them Nirvishesha because they are fed up with the variety here, and they think that this variety means pain here. There is no variety in the spiritual world. So for them, it is not true, but the spiritual realm is actually filled up with spiritual variety, and that is also described as Viśeṣa. So Viśeṣa-śobhaṁ, and his Shobha means whose loveliness can be compared with millions of Cupids. And to that Govinda, Govindam ādi-puruṣaṁ tam ahaṁ bhajāmi. So then Brahmaji is again, this line is repeating here, O Govinda, who is the pleasure giver of cows and the senses, and he is the original person, ādi-puruṣa. To him I am worshipping. I offer my obeisances. To him I am constantly meditating. So the translation here goes, let me go to the translation and purport as well. So he says here, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus platters, with head decked with peacock feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of clouds. Kandarpa-koṭi-kamanīya-viśeṣa-śobhaṁ. And in the purport, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes, the matchless beauty of Krishna, the supreme Lord of Goloka, is being described here. So from this verse, Brahmaji is describing beauty of Krishna in several verses. And Krishna, the all-pervading cognition, has spiritual form of his own. So many times Prabhupada described that people in Brahman realization, or people in general here in this material world, they think that God has no form, because then, or having limiting God in a form is limiting him. And that's why they consider, because the only realization that they have of form is the material form, that they consider themselves as form, and that's why they think that God has no form. But in here it is clearly mentioned his form is described, and how he's holding his flute, he's playing on his flute. His color is described as that of a dark cloud, dark bluish cloud, which is filled with water, and how his beauty is compared to millions of Cupids, and he's decorated with a peacock feather on his head. So that is his spiritual form of his own. And the form Krishna is not, this form of Krishna is not fanciful imagination. So somebody may say that, oh, the picture what you are created of Krishna, or the deity what you have created of Krishna, is just your imagination. So here it is clearly mentioned that that form of Krishna is not just fanciful creation or imagination formed after visualizing beautiful things in this material world. So it is not come from just the beauty of this world and then somebody has come up with this form. Rather, what Brahma saw in his ecstatic trance of pure devotion is described here. So which is seen by Brahmaji in his ecstatic trance of pure devotion. And that form is described here. It is not somebody's creation, mental concoction, or imagination. So Krishna is engaged playing upon his flute. So he describes again what is given in this verse. So he's playing his flute, veṇuṁ kvaṇantam. And that flute, by his enchanting musical sound, attracts the hearts of all the living beings. And particularly in Vrindavan, the gopis are always attracted by his flute, and because they are always eager to see his form unlimitedly, even as they curse Brahmaji that he is so-called engineer or the creator, but they find faults in his creation also, that he created the eyes or the eyelids which they have to close. And because so it is kind of a fault in his creation, because when they close the eyelids for the moment, they cannot see Krishna. So they are so much eager to see his unlimited form continuously without even blinking of eyes. So that is the form his Brahmaji is also describing here. And just as the lotus petal produces pleasant sight, so the two beautiful eyes of Krishna, which causes the manifestation of spiritual vision, display unlimited splendor of the beauty like moon-like face. So Krishna's face is already moon-like face, and on that, the two eyes which are compared to a blooming lotus petals, they are beautifying that face and they are giving a spiritual pleasure. And the loveliness of that adorn his head with peacock feather figures and the corresponding feature of the spiritual beauty of Krishna. Just as a mass of blue clouds offer a specifically soothing, pleasant view, the complexion of Krishna is analogously tinged with spiritual dark blue color. So the mass of cloud, it gives a soothing and pleasant view. In the same manner, Krishna's complexion is of the same color and it is compared with that dark blue cloud. And that beauty of and loveliness of Krishna is far more enchanting than that of Cupid multiplied by millionfold. So this is just to compare how beautiful Krishna is. It is one of his opulences, as one of the six opulences. He is the most beautiful person. But when we say most beautiful, we always look for something to compare with. So just to comparison, it is given here that Cupid, who is the most beautiful person considered in this material world, his Krishna's beauty is multiplied by Cupid's beauty in millionfold. So that is the beauty of Krishna. So we can probably read the next verse. We have 10 minutes. Then he's further saying, Brahmaji is further saying, ālola-candraka-lasad-vanamālya-vaṁśī ratnāṅgadaṁ praṇaya-keli-kalā-vilāsam śyāmaṁ tri-bhaṅga-lalitaṁ niyata-prakāśaṁ govindam ādi-puruṣaṁ tam-ahaṁ bhajāmi. So he is wearing a beautiful garland of flowers which is decorated with a moon-like locket, and that is swinging around his neck. Ālola-candraka-lasad. Candraka-lasad, which is beautified by a moon locket, and which is the garland is made up of the vanamalya, the flowers from forest flowers. And again here he is holding a vaṁśī, a flute. which is decorated with jewel ornaments. Ratnāṅgadaṁ, praṇaya-keli-kalā-vilāsam, and he is engaged in beautiful pastimes, multiple pastimes, and he is relishing those with the gopis there. Praṇaya-keli, keli also, that word is used for joking or what do you call it? The joking affairs between Krishna and gopis. He's performing those pastimes. And Kala is also mentioned by using his 64 different kalas or the arts what he's engaged in with those gopis. And he's relishing those pastimes continuously there. And again here his color mentioned śyāmaṁ. So in the previous verse we saw that asitāmbuda-sundarāṅgam. So his color there was compared to water-filled blue complexion, bluish cloud, and here again he is śyāma-sundar. So again his complexion is bluish. And how he's standing? Tri-bhaṅga-lalitaṁ. He's gracefully standing, bent in three places. Tri-bhaṅga-lalitaṁ. And he's niyata-prakāśaṁ. He's eternally manifested in Vrindavan, in the Goloka Vrindavan. To that, govindam ādi-puruṣaṁ tamaham bhajāmi. So this description, again, he's describing the beauty of Krishna in various ways. Brahmaji is seeing that form and he's describing that in his meditation. So he says here, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, around whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with a moon-locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments. So he's holding a flute and he's adorned with jeweled ornaments, ratnāṅgadaṁ. He's who always reveals in pastime of love, and whose graceful threefold beautiful bending form of śyāma-sundara is eternally manifest in Goloka Vrindavan. śyāmaṁ tri-bhaṅga-lalitaṁ niyata-prakāśaṁ. And in the purport, Prabhupada mentions here, in the shloka beginning with Chintamani, he refers to the first shloka where Goloka Vrindavan was described, Chintamani Prakhara, the transcendental region and spiritual names of Govinda. In the shloka beginning with veṇuṁ kvaṇantam, the eternal beautiful form of Govinda. And in this shloka, the amorous pastimes of Govinda, the embodiment of his 64 excellences or kalas have been described. So first his Goloka, the description of his region or dham, then his form of veṇuṁ kvaṇantam, and in this verse, including the form, his pastimes, how he's performing with the gopis. Praṇaya-keli-kalā-vilāsam. So all this is described. And all the spiritual affairs that come within the scope of description in the narration of this ecstatic mellow quality or rasa are included in the spiritual amorous sport of Govinda. So this is how he is performing his pastimes in Goloka Vrindavan. This is how his beautiful, his spiritual abode is again excellent, everything in all the ways, and he is engaged in these pastimes eternally there in the Goloka Vrindavan. So it is 9:25. I'll stop there and we can take some reflections or thoughts. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It's very beautifully described about Lord Brahma and everything.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
The statement that you're making that reminded me from God's purpose when he reads this Brahma Samhita.
Prabhuji, you're breaking a little bit. I don't know if it is for me or for everyone.
Is it better now?
Yeah, I mean, it is little far, Prabhuji. Your voice is little far.
Actually, my phone is just...
Now it is better, Prabhu.
Okay. I was saying, Prabhu, when you were describing the first and second words that of these prayers.
Mhm.
It reminded me Prabhupada's purport, Brahma Samhita. The words were practically, you were repeating verbatim. They were reminding me Prabhupada's purport.
Mhm. And in many classes, I saw even Bhagavatam classes, Prabhupada recite these verses and describes this, and then he starts Bhagavatam class. Yes, Prabhupada, Prabhuji, you were saying something. Sorry, did I interrupt you?
I'm saying it reminded me of Prabhupada's reading the purport on Brahma Samhita.
Mhm.
So your sentences were practically verbatim, repeating Prabhupada's words.
Thank you, Prabhu. Mhm.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
So I was very impressed by the way you were explaining Lord Krishna's beauty.
Mataji,
About
you sound a little bit far from mic. Is it? I don't know if it is only for me or.
yeah. So can it is it a little bit more clear now? Better than before?
Almost the same.
Oh, okay.
Is it only
Yeah,
for me
so-
or others also feel like?
No, I can hear also far.
I don't know. Let me
Okay,
check.
go ahead, Mataji.
Yeah, so I was saying that very nicely you described about the beauty of the Lord, about his holding the flute, and how we know about Cupid. He's the most beautiful person, and how millions of Cupid, more than that, he's so beautiful. And you also mentioned how gopis are so mesmerized that they don't want to close their eyelids, and they could even say that there is a fault in the creation of Lord Brahma, that this eyelids close and then we are unable to see the Lord for those few, some seconds, fraction of second actually. But then they are complaining that okay, we this is really stopping us from continuously seeing the Lord. So that was so wonderful. And also, you also mentioned about Keli-kalā. Although here, Prabhupada, the translation for the word to word is just past tense, but you mentioned about how Keli means the joking past tense between gopis and Krishna and all. Yeah, I was really, really impressed by those things. Even the small details you were able to amplify and elaborate. Would love to know, like you supported it based on some other explanations from other acharyas, or like how did you manage to do that?
So Jiva Goswami has his own commentary, and I shared that document earlier, I think, in the PDF format, but I can share again. And on these purports, he has given very small things. So he mentions their Keli word is described different ways. And in this, he's also jokingly pastimes and Kala. So using all his 64 Kalas that Krishna uses. So that's where I was referring to. And I was also referring to the same word used in other places, what other meaning is it has.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Radharajan Prabhu. I really like the word by word explanation. It really, when you hear, it really, we can imagine, how Krishna, when you do word by word,
Mhm.
you can really imagine his beauty and what he does, and but one thing which really, took into, which I never heard before was the moon-locket of Krishna.
Mhm.
And because I have heard of so many ornaments he's wearing and different types, but I never heard of a moon-locket. So I was just wondering, moon-locket is like, the Ashtami moon, how he has, that kind of locket, or how does it look like a moon-locket?
I would say I don't have the details, but I'll see if I can find more.
It's like Ashtami Chandra, right? Ashtami.
Yeah, I understand. Chandra core,
Chandra, like that kind of locket.
crescent moon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, I was just wondering what, yeah,
Mhm.
but otherwise, really like it. Thank you.
And sometimes we hear these verses so many times, but when we get into details of each verse, and particularly when we each word, how some of these words, how acharyas describe, and then it gives you complete different dimension of that beauty.
Yes, yeah.
So
Agree.
that was beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So I think we will stop here then, if there are no more questions or comments. And we'll continue this journey next week.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It's a wonderful class. So we'll conclude the class now.
Thank you very much, Radha.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Shankaran Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Nice class, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुएव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो अन्धकृत वैष्णववृन्द की जय श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.